Until a few years ago, if a patient was readmitted, and even if that readmission was the fault of the hospital's getting paid for that. So there wasn't an incentive to do less. There wasn't an incentive to be efficient. What value means is that we're getting paid to keep people well. We're getting paid a lump of money ahead of time as an agreement with an insurance company that says, if you're going to take care of these 200,000 people, this is how much money you're going to get. Now the incentive is to keep people well. Now the incentive is to keep people out of the emergency room, to have the MRI done in the least expensive place, to be as affordable as possible. Now that's really a sea change in medicine, because it suddenly aligns the doctor with the patient and the payer, in which everyone is aligned to keep people well. And that sounds great. I mean, and for the macroeconomics of healthcare, it's certainly better than fee-for-service medicine. The issue that we all should be sensitive about is we tried things like this in the 90s. We called them HMOs, and patients hated them because their care was essentially de facto being rationed. That somebody is saying, wait a minute, I don't want you to see that specialist. You may think you need to see a cardiologist, but we don't think you need to see a cardiologist. Or in the case of really super specialty hospitals like we can be, we have doctors who are always looking for the unusual diagnosis in the very difficult patient who's not getting better. And that patient requires a lot of extra tests. And it just builds up and builds up and builds up the cost. At some point, someone has to say, what's the likelihood that all those extra tests are really going to provide the answer that we need that will miraculously cure this patient? When I was a medical student and we would round, we would always be amazed at the brilliant, iconic physician who figured out what was wrong with a patient that nobody else could figure out. And he did the most extraordinary test that anybody would have even thought of. Today, we teach our medical students, you don't do that. Right? When I was a medical student, we were told, if you think you might need that test, you do that test. Now we say, no, no, no. If you think that there's a reason that that test is going to show you something very important, you should do that test. Now, what does that ultimately mean? It means that we're going to miss things in a value-oriented system. And what we haven't really calculated is what's the value of a single human life. And how important is it for us to spend that extra money to save that occasional patient? And we shouldn't lose sight of that's going to be the value proposition when we move to this new way of reimbursing people in medicine.